Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to review the retro clone role-playing game, Dark Dungeons. Yes, the cover doesn't look the same as the actual PDF because the cover from the PDF is like almost all black, which would just eat up my toner and would look very streaky, so I mocked up my own cover. But the basic question to ask is, does this role-playing game, the retro clone, emulate this game here, which is what it's based on? And I can say, without reservation, it does in fact emulate this game almost note perfect. So if you have ever wanted to play the Rules Encyclopedia set of basic D&D rules, but you could not find them because they're hard to come by. I mean, I got lucky. I found these for $1 at a yard sale. Yes, the book is in very rough shape. It's got a bow on the top and it's got lots of wear. But for $1, I was able to read the rules, get a little bit of history, and add it to my collection. But you can get this one for nothing as a PDF, or I believe you can go through Lulu and get it as a print on demand. I got the PDF and I had it bound by Staples for $3.50. So, no reservations. If you want to play that version of the game, but you can't get a copy, get this copy. It will give you that experience without any problem. Now, there were things that I did notice when I read this. Now, some of these comments may be slightly negative, but it's not about the product itself. It's more overall about the original document, things that I think I may just not have noticed the first time I read it. And I read it a while back. I think I got this last year. I'm not positive. I will flip through the table of contents here and use it as my notes. Yeah, okay. It talks about what the game is, talking about the gist of getting into the game, basic game concepts, about, like dice, creature attributes, ability scores, things like that. The introduction, what is a role-playing game, that kind of thing. So the first part of the book is all of that. The second part of the book is characters and their abilities. Then it gets into creating a character step by step, and you go over the different classes. Now the classes are Cleric, Dwarf, Elf, Fighter, Halfling, Magic User, Mystic, and Thief. Now, it still bothers me that the Cleric cannot cast divine spells at first level. But I think it is kind of cool that this covers the characters all the way up through 36th level. So that's kind of nice. If you like to play up into higher levels, this game comes out of the box, ready to go, you're good. Nothing all that exciting about the Cleric. If you are familiar with D&D at all, this is the base class that we have. Everything else has been based on, essentially. If you are familiar with modern Clerics, you are familiar with this class. It should not surprise you in any way, shape, or form. The Dwarf, the first of the racial classes. Now, I'm kind of opposed to racial classes. Again, this is not a comment about this book. It's the genre of that era. Because it kind of like enforces stereotypes. Yes, some dwarves are fighters. Not all dwarves are fighters. But this dwarf is a fighter class. And it does it admirably. So there you go. And this product takes it, again, all the way up to 36 levels. So that's good. Next we have the Elf, which is a fighter / magic user. Next we have the Classic Fighter. Big shield, armor, big whopping sword. You kill things. It's your shtick. Halfling, you are a sneaky little bastard. Live and love the stereotype. The Magic User, the classic staff-carrying, pointy hat-wearing Magic User. Now, one thing I was a little surprised with, and again, this may have been from the original book, I didn't notice it. The allowed weapons are dagger and staff, makes perfect sense. Wizard stuff. Sling, whip, net, and blowgun. Now, a blowgun is at least as complex as a bow. Why magic users can use them, I don't get. A net, unusual. I could kind of see that. It gives you kind of the ability to control the environment a little bit. Kind of makes sense, but again, still more complex than I think most Magic users are going to put into. Whip, incredibly complex to use. I cannot imagine for the heart of me why anyone thought that that was a good idea. Whips are difficult to use, even if you're doing it as entertainment. And I've learned how to do that for entertainment. To use it as a weapon takes a lot of training. And slings. Slings are mechanically simple. Little leather patch, 2 pieces of line, you spin them and you launch a missile. Incredibly difficult to use in practice. Whereas a crossbow is mechanically complex, but incredibly simple to use. To my mind, Magic users should be able to use crossbows and not be able to use slings. That's just me. The Mystic, the only class that has a really large number of character class abilities. You get quite a few of them, and this is called the Mystic, but it's essentially the Eastern Monk. I like the name Mystic. I think it's a cool name. But if you're familiar with the AD&D Monk or any of the other versions of D&D, you're kind of familiar with how the Mystic is kitted out for abilities. And the last is the Thief. The dyed-in-the-wool wool. He steals stuff. Okay, that's what he does. Then we get into abilities checks, skills, things like that, and then an alphabetical listing of skills. Weapon feats. Now, one of the things I do like, both in the original basic encyclopedia and in this, is that weapon feats are in levels. So you start with basic level, master level, basically untrained, simple, master, competent, master, and grandmaster. I like that tiered structure. I think it's really well. There's an acquaintance of mine on the D&D news group, a guy named Keith Davies, who is doing a version of the 3.5 rules, which is essentially what this game I'm holding in my hand is, called Echelon, and he's using the same process. It worked good back in the days of D&D. It worked great now. I like that tiered structure. I'm glad it's in this book. Then they get into spell casting and all the different things about that. One thing I was a little confused about, the Druid, which is a subclass of the Cleric, doesn't get Summon Elemental. That to me seems like a given, but they don't get it. I think I might add it in if I were going to run the game, but that's just me. Then you get into money, starting money, and encumbrance and weights are in coins. Now a coin is 1/10 of a pound, 1.6 ounces. So if something weighs 6,000 coins, it weighs 600 pounds. Why not just use pounds? Why even bother saying coins? I didn't understand it when it was in the original. I'm not really sure why they did it here. I know it was an homage to the original, but it just seems like a needless step. All you're going to do is move a decimal place to convert it. So why do it? I don't know. Then there's a bunch of Mundite items, weapons, armor. You get the idea. Then we get to dungeon delving and all the different things you're going to need to actually structure and build dungeons, which is very handy. Then you get into a section on combat. Nothing really earth-shatteringly new there if you're familiar with D&D at all. The rounds are longer in this game. They're 1 minute because that's what they were in the original. A section on healing. A section on the wider world. About fatigue, foraging, wind and storms, airborne movement, wilderness encounters, things like that. Settling down, a bit about titles and building structures and things like that. Section on war, so a nice little section on war for mass combat. Out of the world, which is all about different planes. Very nice to have. Questing for Immortality, a section on playing Immortals, which goes, I believe, up to another 36 levels. So you could technically, with this one book, play 72 levels of a character, and you get to be really powerful. Of course, to become an Immortal, you have to get an Immortal to sponsor you, and they have to donate 1 million experience points to you to elevate you to being an Immortal. So you better know how to kiss Immortal buns. Then it was a section on game mastering, how to handle monsters, treasures, a nice section on artifacts for building things that Immortals would use, which is very detailed, very nicely done. Making magic items for the more mundane world, that's a little more sketchy. And it's always been that way in the older versions of D&D, so that's not really surprising. And then there's a bunch of things on game mastering advice, the index, and the open gaming license. Now, again, if you've always wanted to play this book, but you could not find a copy, go out, get Dark Dungeons. You will not be disappointed. And please do not take any of my critiques as being negative towards Dark Dungeons. It's more basically about that kind of genre of game. I don't really understand why some of the things were done originally, and why they still exist. But again, that's just me. But the author of Dark Dungeon should be applauded. Excellent work.